pick you up and never put you down. I'd hold you up close, and like a star beside the moon, we could take on the world. Wish I could give you a home filled with all the ones you love, a place where you never feel alone, somewhere you can be yourself. We can dance and swing and run if I could. All right. Don and Candus were on Janky's Rumor Has It live stream May 4th, 2023. It's actually titled Don and Candus Want to Address Kathy the Friend. It was more of Candus saying she has nothing to say, basically, and Don calling everyone N-words. Kathy has some things of Summer's and wants them back now that people know that Kathy has it, though it wasn't a problem before. When you listen to this and you hear Don in the background fooling around with his grandson, calling him a mother effer and threatening to whoop his ass, a lot of people say they grew up like that and they're fine. They grew up like that and they're fine. So we shouldn't judge Don for his behavior because, some people just talk like that. That doesn't mean they're a bad parent. But I can't help but judge Don for this behavior because people should want to see better out of him, right? Instead of just excusing his awful behavior and trying to act like it's not a big deal when if it was anybody else, they'd be at their throats. Can you imagine if he acts that way, knowing Candus is live? Then can you imagine how he acts when there's nobody listening or watching? When Don and Candus are alone? The things they probably do and say and have done and said around the children is probably worse than what we're hearing here. People usually clean it up a little bit for the camera, especially when they know so many people are going to be viewing. Clearly Don is not concerned about that or about his grandson repeating any of the things that he's saying. And he doesn't seem to be concerned if he offends anybody either, because he thinks anyone that he offends will actually take a lesson off of him by telling us that the N-word has nothing to do with what color your skin is. It has to do with how you act, according to Don. Even though the word is literally a racial slur, Don still justifies it because he says he doesn't mean it that way. Okay, Don, let me call you a little bitch, but it's okay, I don't mean it that way. It still offends you though, right? And you would still wouldn't want me to say that. But if I just said it anyways, then that would be okay because I didn't mean it that way. You see what I'm saying? If I turn it around on you, you wouldn't like that very much. So why do you got to do it to so many people on here that are here for your missing daughter, Summer? It just doesn't make sense. It's really disrespectful. Don says he was called that before, and it really made him think. It made him change his ways. Don says the N-word is just a low-life person, but what Don is failing to mention or maybe failing to realize altogether is that word is actually very racist and offensive, and you can't tell me he doesn't know that. And it doesn't matter what it means to him when he's in a room filled with hundreds of people that are asking him not to use the word because it makes them uncomfortable or because it's offensive. If you simply Google the N-word, well, look, I'll show you. When you Google it, yeah, a contemptuous term for black or dark-skinned person. So, yep, that's what it means, Don. Even Google says so. And that's like the only thing that it says that it means. This is in Summer's name. Would you want your sons in Summer to ever hear this one day and think that was what my dad had to say when Summer was missing? Seriously? The mean and offensive language is not helping them pull in any help for Summer. And it's probably actually pushing some people away from a conversation that was supposed to be productive in Summer's favor, but it turned into this. Don wanted to talk to people like that, knowing we're all here for Summer. Did Don and Candus forget that's why 95% of people are here is because of Summer? Because we want to know what happened to her, and we refuse to let this be swept under the rug. We want Summer found, and we want answers. We refuse to sit silently waiting while Summer is still an active Amber Alert child, and she could literally be anywhere. And we don't even know what really happened on the day Summer disappeared because her mother can't seem to remember exactly what happened that day. There's a few hours of time that is unaccounted for and has been since the very beginning, and Candus gets very upset whenever she is asked about it. She says time gets away from you when you're just trying to enjoy yourself, but that is a lot of time to get away from you. If you thought it was only 2 minutes and it was 3 hours, and it's kind of funny how you could so clearly remember everything from the entire day up until right before Summer went missing. Why did your memory just go out conveniently in those 3 hours up leading to Summer disappearing? Were you pretty intoxicated June 15th and that's why you don't have a solid timeline? Where there is 3 hours missing, was that a time when you were hanging with grandma? Were you doing some pills or something and that's when Summer got gone and you really don't know where she is or what happened because you weren't watching her? Or did you fall asleep or something and you're afraid to say that because you don't want to get in trouble for not watching Summer? I'm just wondering because there's got to be something that you're purposely not telling us, that you're leaving out. It just doesn't make sense that you can't remember if you even got home till 3, 4, or 5 o'clock, but you say you filled your time with all kinds of things. So what were those things specifically that you filled your time with, and why is it such a sensitive thing for you to have to answer when it was so easy for you to talk about everything else? You even said, I even thought one of the tree trimmers might have snatched her, like it was nothing. But why is it so difficult for you to talk about those 3 hours? And why does everyone seem to think that anyone that asks you that is attacking you? That's a big difference in time. You would think the day Summer disappeared, you would be a little more clear on that. Unless you were really intoxicated, or you really did fall asleep, or you left and went somewhere and left the kids home alone, and time got away from you because you were trying to enjoy yourself or whatever, and maybe when you came back, Summer was gone, and maybe you don't know how long Summer was really missing before you called 911. Maybe it was a couple hours, maybe it was 10 minutes. I mean, just speculation. I'm trying to think logically and come up with something that makes sense because I can't put this puzzle together in my head without the pieces that law enforcement has, obviously, but I can't help but still try in the back of my head because I really want to know what happened to Summer. And we all do it. I want to know where she is so bad, just like everyone else, but I see no push from Candus to want to get out and find her daughter. She just seems to want to just stick with Don, whatever he's doing. I just don't see it, and I never have. I didn't say I don't think Candus had any love for Summer. I just don't see her motivation and her desperation in finding Summer. Her love and desperation should be motivation enough, but I see no desperation in her. Maybe she is broken. Maybe she's just been broken for a long time, since way before Summer came up missing. But that doesn't mean she should want to shut down and not want to talk about her daughter, because she jokes around just fine about everything with Daisy and Jakey's and seems perfectly fine to talk about Summer, but she never wants to. And she was perfectly fine with pulling pranks on Mary and talking crap about them, and the prank with the baby in the bin and all the things that she's done underhanded to people, in Summer's case this whole time, that people that tried to get close to her that realized that she really wasn't that good of a person to be friends with, so they kind of left. And people are telling now how she really is, how she really was to them at least. And it makes Candus sound like a shady person. So I'm not saying it's impossible that she loved and cared for her daughter just because she seems like a shady person. I'm just saying, in my mind, Candace seems to fit the type that's neglectful to her children, and that could tie in to Summer's disappearance. And maybe she needs to be a little bit more open about that and what really happened on June 15th. But she never talks about it. She didn't even talk about it to Kathy. She has had so many opportunities with so many hundreds of people watching at one time with thousands of views to come, and she doesn't take advantage of it for Summer. She's using people to get money and lying about what she needs it for to get as much as she can out of people around her, according to Kathy, and people that Kathy claims have contacted her with the same problem. Candus has made pranks in Summer's name and has even said it's time to put Summer to the side. And I don't even think it had been a year since Summer had been missing at the time when Candus said that. I just don't see the fire burning in her to find her missing daughter and get answers. And it seems like when she does talk about her or say anything about her or add anything in to the timeline, it's because somebody has pushed her to do it, not because she wanted to. So I just don't see it. I don't know her. Obviously, I'm judging off of what I see and hear on YouTube. And judging by that, it's pretty grim. I don't think it looks good for Dawn or Candace. I think they are going to have a rude awakening in their future, and have to answer for some things in regards to their children and any neglect or abuse they may have endured at the hands of Dawn and Candace. That's just my opinion. I see what I see and I can't unsee it. I get angry sometimes when I think Candace and Dawn have the answers to finding Summer, and they're just right in front of our face, but they're never going to tell, and they're fooling so many people. But because they are more worried about themselves, they're never going to divulge that information to anybody. So they think that whoever has, Candace and Don both have said that they know that whoever has Summer is just sitting there and watching all this and laughing at them. But it seems like they're the ones that have the answers, and they're the ones that are sitting back and watching all this and laughing. In my heart, I really do think they know more than they let on. There's 3 hours unaccounted for that will never get explained. And whenever someone asks about it, they're attacked by people that support Candace. I think it's possible that Don could have came and taken Summer when Candace wasn't paying attention, sometime maybe around 4, 5, 5:30, 4:30, sometime in there. Candace wasn't paying attention and got her off the hill. Don did, maybe, possibly. I think it's possible that if Don and Candace had anything to do with Summer's disappearance, that they had someone help them. I don't know, like, just to throw a name out there, Tim Mullen could possibly be somebody that might fit the description of suspicious in that regard. That someone would have had to have been there already or been contacted in person, because those calls would have been tracked. So if there was somebody else involved, they would have already had to have been there when Candace got home, right? Or like came home with Candace and maybe not been seen in the milk jug video, or the milk jug video wasn't from that day. Who knows? But possibly could have been a neighbor or someone in the holler. If there was drugs involved, is it possible that Candace walked to Jody's to get something or take something to her and Summer got into something and Jody had to help cover it up because she was involved with the drugs? I mean, I don't really think so, but it is still strange to me that Jody was so heavily involved and inserted herself so heavily from the literal first second. And then it's also kind of strange to me that, well, I don't know. I don't want to get too into that actually because that's not what this is about. And I don't really think Jody Sue's really very relevant in this, but I feel like she could be. And if she was, I wouldn't really be that surprised. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, what's far-fetched at this point? Why do I get attacked for speculating logically things that could actually have potentially happened on June 15th? So I can think, okay, then what would they do next? Where would they take Summer after that? My brain just works this way. I know I'm not law enforcement, obviously, but that doesn't mean my mind doesn't think like that. That doesn't mean I don't want answers just as bad as they do. And it's my channel, and that's what I'm thinking about, so that's what I'm going to talk about. When Candus first comes on Janky's Live, she says she only has one thing to say. And Don, in the background, loudly says, "You better have a lot more to say than that." F that, mind you. Don's young grandson is there during this call, who's probably around the same age as Summer, and he's just a little boy. Candus says she just wants Kathy to drop her stuff off at the local sheriff's department so she can have her stuff back. Now, I'm under the impression that Kathy was never personally asked by Candus or by anyone for Candus to give that box back that had Summer's stuff in it and whatever else Candus left with Kathy. Candus makes it out to be that Kathy is holding this stuff hostage from Candus when Candus is the one that left it with Kathy in the first place. Kathy wouldn't have minded at all if Candus came and got that stuff at any time. Don is in the background telling the little boy that he's in trouble and telling him to go tell them what he did. Don's like, "Tell him what you did, boy." The little boy sounds like he's laughing, so I'm assuming Don was just joking around with him, but it was kind of hard to tell. Candus says she doesn't want nothing to do with Kathy's lying, mischievous ass no more. I want to hear Candus tell us what specifically that Kathy lied about. How is Kathy mischievous? That would be one good question for Candus. I'm sure that would prompt another live from Kathy if Candus were to come out and say what Kathy lied about. Jenkins tells Candus, "Kathy needs to give you your stuff back. Summer is your child." Well, Jenkins, was Kathy really keeping anything from Candus, honestly? Candus should be grateful that Kathy held on to it for her because from the sounds of it, Candus wanted Kathy to hold on to that stuff for safekeeping, and Kathy kept it safe for her. And she was totally willing to give it back at any time. All Candus had to do was ask. She turned it out to make it look like Kathy stole the stuff from her, or was keeping it from her against her will, and that's just not the case. But Candus says, "Yeah, that's all I care about. I just want Summer and my boys' stuff back." If Kathy can't do that, then there's something wrong with her, according to Candus. I don't think there's anything wrong with Kathy. I think the problem here is you, Candus, because you're making this into a whole problem when it could have been really simple. Candus could have just asked Kathy for her stuff back straight up. Kathy would have had no problem returning it. She has her number. Right, Kathy? Don and his grandson are joking around in the background about Don's grandson is going to marry Summer, which is a little strange to joke about considering they're so closely related. Candus says she just wants Summer's stuff back and her boys' stuff back and just leave it at the local sheriff's department. Right. You said that. What Candus doesn't want to even face Kathy? Why? Is she ashamed because she knows Kathy caught her in so many lies and bottom feeding in her own daughter's name? Janke says that's actually the best place to leave it is the sheriff's office, which she's probably right. Jenkins mentions how people are saying that was the jacket Summer had on June 15th, 2021. But it wasn't what she had on when she actually went missing, even though Dawn said she went missing in the outfit she was wearing in the milk jug photo. Candus says Summer wore that jacket that day that she went missing, but she took it off because she got too hot. So she wasn't wearing it when she went missing. I think that question most people have is, why did she not give that jacket to law enforcement? Even if it was mixed up in some laundry, or even if she did wash it, I would just be like, hey, I just washed this, but she had it on earlier. But then it would just look like you were trying to hide something, right? There's no way Candus forgot Summer had that jacket on that day. If she really was wearing it on June 15th, unless Candus was really intoxicated. Just a few hours before she was reported missing, she was wearing it, right? Unless the milk jug photo was not from that day, because Summer was probably sweating in that, wearing it in the middle of June. It probably would have had a lot of scent on it for the dogs, especially if she was barefoot that day. Then it would make more sense to give them the jacket rather than a sock. She probably hadn't worn a sock in a while because she probably went barefoot all the time. So that jacket really would have been the best thing to give them. And I don't know if Candus just didn't think about it at the time because there was so much going on, or if Don was the one that made that decision. I don't know. Maybe Ellie just straight up asked for a sock. But I doubt they would in the middle of summer for a 5-year-old kid in the country that her mom said was barefoot. You would think a cop should have enough common sense to know Summer probably wouldn't have been wearing socks for a while. They should have asked for the most recent article of clothing, which would have been that jacket. I think it's too late for investigators to do anything with it, but I don't know. They could possibly use it for something. They're not going to get a fresh scent off of it, obviously, but when Candus was asked about if they gave L.E. a sock on June 15th, she ignored that question and just kept talking about the jacket. So I was curious if she did give Ellie a sock and why she would do that if Summer was barefoot that day. Candus says she doesn't want anybody on her property ever again. She says Jenkins knows who she's talking about. Is she talking about Kathy? Because this live was supposed to be addressing Kathy, but it doesn't seem like Candus actually has anything to address other than she wants her stuff dropped off at the local sheriff's office because she doesn't want to face Kathy. Don is in the background swearing at his grandson and using derogatory language per usual. Don wanted the door open because it was hot, and his grandson didn't want the door open because he was scared of the boogeyman that Candus told him was out there. And Don was telling him to open the damn door over and over. The little boy says he's going to get Candus to get Don. Like, I'm going to get you. And he's like, I'm going to get Candus to get you. And Don says, I'll F her up too. Wow, what a great example to be for your young grandson. Don, promote DV against your wife. What do you do when nobody is recording? I know they're joking around, but that's not really an appropriate way to talk to your grandson, especially when you know all these people can hear you and you know there's a bunch of people listening because they're here for summer and you're her parents. So people are here listening to what is being said. And then people are talking about it, and you know this, and you give us stuff like this to talk about. Why? It's disrespectful to Summer. And then watch, they're going to turn around and complain about mob mentality and not wanting all this hate and negative judgment against them. They're just acting out because they're upset that Summer is missing. Oh, well then take the help that's continually being offered instead of turning it down and backing out every time. Do something big for Summer. Then you can complain about the hate you're getting and lash out. But you can't just sit there and say all these hateful and negative things in Summer's name over and over and refuse to do anything or actually genuinely even talk about Summer. You give us nothing to work with and helping you to help her. And then you expect people not to talk negatively about you and come for you. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be a very fun outcome for you in the end. We care about Summer. And even if it's her dad that unfortunately is the one disrespecting her, we will call it out and it will be talked about because it's wrong. Don is the one that's really acting out and being offensive now. Candus has in the past, like with the pranks, for example. Candus is just appearing to be intoxicated all the time now, as has been for a long time. It is what it is. People are going to talk about it. It'd be different if she worked and was trying to do things to advocate for Summer, but I don't see that, and nobody else does either. It makes people wonder why. Why is Candus taking advantage of people for all this money when she doesn't need it for what she says she does? So what's she using it for? It's none of my business, sure, but I'm so invested in Summer's case that I'm asking these questions for a reason. I'm not just being nosy. I'm not just trying to hate on Candus or make her look bad. I'm trying to figure her out and try to get a better look into Summer's life by understanding her parents as well as I can. And Candus doesn't seem to be doing anything to try to help her own self, which is sad. Or her own daughter, Summer, which is even more sad. But everyone's different, right? Everyone handles tragedy different. That doesn't negate all the red flags, though. I can understand not wanting to cry on camera and not wanting to tell your whole life story. I get that. But can you at least give us something with substance that makes sense about June 15th, 2021? Here Don comes now on Jenki's Live. Candus says, okay, Don is going to come live with y'all. Don is in the background calling his grandson a mother effer and says if he ever does that again, he is going to whoop his ass. Does what again? I don't know. Don absolutely knew that Candus was live because he was about to come on and talk, and he knew Candus had been live the whole time that she was. It really makes me wonder what Don is like when there's no recording. Behind closed doors, when there's nobody else around besides whoever's on the hill and whoever they let in their home. Don just doesn't seem to have any empathy at all, not even for children. He has to fake it, in my opinion, because whenever he tries to sound like he's being genuinely nice and understanding, it seems fake. Don comes on, and Daisy and Jenkins tell Don how cute his grandson is, and he says he is mean as ever, but that's how boys are. Don says he's just been working, got pretty sick there for a while. Don says he is real upset about Kathy, supposed to be Candace's friend, and turns out to be another freaking, I don't know how many have done this same thing. Don says it doesn't hurt his feelings, but it hurts Candace's. Don tells his grandson he loves him and he will see him tomorrow. So I don't know if he left or went to bed or what, but hopefully he was nowhere within earshot of Don because Don got pretty loud. So if that child was in the same vicinity as Don, he probably heard everything he said, and it was pretty bad. So trigger warning on this, language warning on this, it's not nice. Don says we all get mad and make mistakes. Don says since day one Summer has come up missing, we have been used and abused by the police, by the psychics, by the fake search teams, the fake YouTubers, all the N-word mother effers since day one. Don says he is here to fight against all the N-words out there, and yeah, he will use that word. White, black, yellow, green, I don't give an F. Don says he is not projecting this towards his friends. He says he is sorry, he can't help it. He says he is so pissed off that he can't help it anymore. He's done. He says this is what divided his family to begin with. It's not just the YouTubers, it's the effing police, it's all of them, everybody. Well, Don, I hate to say this, I really actually do, but you divided your family. When you decided to continue partying and using and drinking and fighting and continuing with the DV and all this stuff with Candus and doing whatever you and Candus did to lose custody of your 3 boys and whatever happened to cause Summer to get gone, that is what divided your family. From the looks of it. Don says again, he is done. I wonder what he means he is done with. He is done putting up with anybody's accusations and negativity? Is he done with people pressuring him and Candus into accepting any type of help for themselves or in helping to advocate for Summer? I'm really curious what he means by that. Sherry tells Don not to get himself all worked up, and he says, no, I'm worked up. I'm done. I'm tired. I can't stand it, he says. Then he says, this is the reason that it was so dangerous at our house, that I was like, welfare, please take my boys out of here because it's dangerous, it's bad. I wonder if Don actually said that to a CPS worker, because if their case was closed on the 14th, like Don claims, when Don says the welfare came up there the 14th and closed their case, then they got involved again after Summer's disappearance and the boys were removed, and they confirmed they are involved in Summer's case. So whatever the reason they got involved again after Summer's disappearance is probably the reason why the boys were removed. Unless Don was the one that called them in the first place and said he wanted the boys removed. But maybe Don did tell them that he thought it was too dangerous on the hill while they were investigating another matter regarding the boys and their family, and that played into their removal too. Don knows nobody is privileged to that information. Don says, yeah, I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight now. Don says he is tired of all of them, from Hawkins County to the effing police to the effing judge to YouTubers to the psychics to the effing fake search teams, all of them. And if anyone wants to come up against me, I'm right here. I think a lot of these people don't want to fight Don or even attack Don personally. It's just that there are so many questions and concerns. Janky says she has a lot of Black people that listen to her and she doesn't want him using that word on her channel. And Don says, no, it's not about Black people. Well, obviously it is. Don says where he grew up, it's not about Black people at all. Don says if they want to blame it on the Black people, that's their problem. Because I'm not saying that about Black people in general. Don is using a word that is commonly known to be used as a racial slur against dark-skinned people and expecting dark-skinned people not to be offended or anyone else be offended for them. Don goes on to say there's many Black people out there that he loves with all his heart. It's not like that at all, says Don. Then call them a mother effer. That's bad enough. You can literally add anything to mother effer, and it will sound pretty bad. Don says he's never had a Black person come up to him and be like, oh, you're calling that white person the N-word. Not once. Well, probably because they weren't concerned about skin tone like you, and they didn't care that you were, because it was none of their business what you were saying to someone else. They start talking about Candus getting her feelings hurt, and Don says Candus didn't know what to do but to shut down. He says he has been talking to Candus and telling her it's time to fight. She needs to stand up and she needs to come out there and tell her side of the story. She has got to do this, says Don. She's not ready, but Don says he hopes she will be ready soon. Ready to tell her side of the story. Of what Kathy has told us, or in Summer's disappearance? What are we talking about here? I would love to know what he actually meant by that. Don says he has faith in Candus. In what? That she's been honest with you about everything that happened June 15th? Or you mean in general? He says, is she a perfect woman? Hell no. But are any of us perfect? Hell no. But is she guilty of having something to do with Summer's disappearance? Hell effing no, says Don. Don wants to push that Summer was abducted. The first thing Don told us was that Summer went out the basement door, which was unlocked. So I'm wondering if the boys said they saw Summer go out the basement door and they don't want anyone to know that, because it makes Candus look bad, like she wasn't paying attention. Because if Summer went down and right out the basement door, then Candus should have seen her, because she was only gone for what she said was 2 minutes. Then she came back and Summer was gone. So Candus would have had to have been gone for more than 2 minutes, or someone was extremely quick and grabbed Summer right as she came out the basement door and took off with her really fast through the woods without Candus or Jody or anyone else noticing, and they would have had to have left no sign for the card team or anyone else to find. They would have had to have gotten out of the area in such a quick time with how quick they allegedly called 911, and they were dispatched into the area within about 30 minutes. They canvassed a large area around 110 Ben Hill, a 1-mile radius that I know of, and if this person had come up there and taken Summer, they would have had to have gone by vehicle, because there's no other way they could have been able to get out of there, to get away on main roads by foot with Summer that fast, with nobody seeing them, or even through the woods that fast without being caught up to and tracked down at some point, unless they knew the area very well. And in that case, it would have had to have been someone from that holler and very familiar with that holler. Maybe not an actual resident, but even someone that had been camping out or staying on that property for some time. It could have been, because there are a lot of bad people surrounding Summer's home and in that area. But why wasn't Candus watching Summer? She had to have been gone longer than 2 minutes. If there was an abductor with a car at the bottom of the hill at that time of day, how did nobody see them? Things just don't add up to me in my mind, and I'm not saying anything is impossible, because anything is possible, and everything is on the table per law enforcement. But on my channel, I feel comfortable enough saying that I think, considering there is no sign of abduction, and what I think logically in my mind, that Summer was not abducted by a stranger. And if someone was there waiting and then specifically took Summer in the perfect timing with nobody in that holler noticing, they would have been seen at some point somewhere with the Amber Alert going out the very next morning and the missing and endangered alert going out that night. I think Jody or Fred or someone, one of the people there looking at the properties, a tree trimmer, somebody would have seen something. If Candus was only gone 2 minutes, she would have seen something. It would have had to have been someone they knew, and then if that's the case, for so many reasons. Now, did Candus put that responsibility of watching Summer on the boys, and they were just busy being kids, so when Summer went downstairs to play, they didn't expect her to go outside and get lost or taken? Summer probably played outside by herself all the time. She probably swung on her swing and ran around the creek. It would have been nothing out of the norm for the boys if Summer did go outside, probably. Daisy chimes in and says Candus is not capable of hurting that baby. That doesn't mean that she couldn't know more about what happened to Summer. What happened in those 3 hours, and why is that information being protected? Don says hell no. Daisy says the Candus that I know loved her baby. There ain't no doubt about it. Don agrees with her and says yeah, she loves her babies with all her heart, with everything she's got. Dawn says she loves all of them there on panel, too, being Jinkies, Daisy, and Sherry. They all say they love her, too. Nobody here suspects Candus of anything. Foul play, guilty knowledge, neglect. Nobody here questions Candus about any of those things, or anything involving June 15th, and they don't question her timeline. Someone asked Candus if Summer really ate a raw hot dog that morning for breakfast, and Candus said yes, she did. She thinks nobody would believe her no matter what she says, and she doesn't want to tell us more because people will just twist her words around and make it something that it's not. I think it would actually cause a lot less of that, Candace, if you would just give us some solid information about June 15th and the time specifically between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. And if you know something that Don has done, then you should probably come clean about it, because if you don't, you're gonna go down for it too. I just wonder why this wasn't mentioned before. Is it because Candace says Summer would just get into the mini fridge herself and get whatever she wanted whenever she was hungry? Summer picked a raw hot dog that morning. Okay, if that's true, whatever. Fed is better than not, but that's Candace's parenting style, I guess. Not judging her for that, but I can't help but notice it. It speaks to me in many ways. It tells me Candace wasn't too concerned about Summer's health, or she is just ignorant to how important it is for a kid to have a solid breakfast in the morning, not just whatever they want out of the fridge whenever they get hungry. That's not a good routine. A child isn't capable of making those kinds of decisions in a way that's actually going to be healthy for them, unless they're trained that way first, which I highly doubt, and especially at the age of 5. Little things like this add up in the column in my head where I think that Candace was a bit neglectful. I think it could have a lot to do with Summer's disappearance. Candace being neglectful. I'm not hating, so take it how you want. I see a lot of signs of neglect on Summer, and now she's missing. So it's logical to think that neglect contributed to Summer being missing, in my opinion. When I look at the pictures and when I look at the case overall, and I look at their home and pictures from before Summer's disappearance and now, and I see what they've done to try to fix their home, that's great that they're trying to fix things and make them better. It starts in the home, and it never hurts to get better. But where was this passion for your home before, when Summer lived in it? She didn't get to see her pink room or her bed with sheets. She probably would have loved that. I think those things weren't thought of before because they were neglectful, and someone had to tell them these are the things you should do. So they did those things because they didn't want to appear neglectful. That's a huge red flag to me. If we can figure out what actually is the cause of Summer being missing, maybe we can figure out where she is. And yeah, it's not our job. We're not law enforcement, but we're here and we're allowed to be, and we care, and we want to see Summer found and justice served. Don says he is all riled up when Sherry points it out. Don says he is sorry for cussing. He is just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. The N-word gets brought back up again. I'm so sick of him saying it, and I can't help but wonder if Don is doing a bit of self-sabotage here on the YouTubes, because he's so sick of people trying to get in his business and giving him shit and not co-signing his bullshit. So maybe he's destroying himself because he feels like there's no coming back from all the damage that's been done at this point. Don says there's N-words in every color, and an N-word is an N-word, except he says the real word. Don says, come on, man, that's the way it is. Don, that's not the way it is. That's, in your head it is, but the vast majority of people find that word uncomfortable, if nothing else, but mainly offensive and disrespectful, and to many actually repulsive. And it's all in Summer's name. How is Don not realizing that, or forgetting that, or does he just not care? Candace isn't trying to stop him or add in anything nice about Summer to try and clean it up or make up for it at all. Not that you really can at that point. Sherry adds in that when Don is saying that word, he is referring to the lowest of the low people. Don agrees with her. He says it could be any color. It's not about black. Even though it is. I'm sorry, man, he says. I was an N-word once in my life, Don says. I was on the streets. I was doing all the bad things. I was an N-word once in my life. I had people call me an N-word, a white boy, and that made me think. That has changed my life, says Don. How is someone calling you an N-word life-changing, Don? Can you expand on that? That's not something I have ever heard someone say. Oh man, someone called me an N-word today. I couldn't believe it. I was so affected. It changed my life. Really? He says he is sorry, not sorry. Daisy asks what's got Don so upset tonight. Don says, because I'm tired of the mob mentality coming after us. They've ruined our lives. When all of this first happened and we had all these people coming to our house at 3, 4 a.m., all this crap going on, we got gunfights, all this stuff at the bottom property, cops was out there, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. We had MGL crawling up our hill like a freaking freak and putting it on YouTube. We had so much going on that I thought it was safer for our boys not to be in our custody. When the welfare wanted to take our boys, I was more than happy to let them take them, says Don, because it was really bad at that time. And yes, I'm very pissed off because not only did the YouTubers and all these effing N-words take advantage of us, also, the N-words of welfare in Hawkins County took advantage of us and effed us over. So, all in one sentence, Don is defending CPS for taking his boys, then he calls them effing N-words and says they screwed him over. Don thinks that CPS kidnapped his boys, as he told the news and everybody else, yet he says that he wanted them to take the boys, making it sound like that's the reason the boys were taken. So then, when CPS wouldn't give them back, Don considers that kidnapping. Well, obviously, Don, they took the boys for a different reason. Or the danger on that hill was you, and maybe that's why the boys were not returned. That actually sounds more likely. Don goes on. So yeah, I'm pissed. I'm effing mad. Daisy said one of Don's biggest mistakes was letting them take the boys. I don't think Don and Candus let CPS take the boys. I believe CPS just took the boys on their own accord because they had a reason that a judge thought was a good reason. So he signed off on it and they came and took the boys. Jenkins asks Don if he can please stop using the N-word because he was upsetting basically everyone in chat. Don replies, well, let them get upset. That's the way it is. Don doesn't care that he is upsetting the crowd of people that are here offering him a hand in doing whatever he needs and advocating for Summer. This is all for them and for Summer, and this is how he acts. That's not a dig at Don. I'm just pointing it out because it is what it is. Like Don says, it is what it is. Don has put it out there for us pretty plainly that he doesn't care if he offends any of us here that are here for Summer. Don continues. Apparently, they have not had none in their life yet, Don says. Well, wait till life kicks you in the ass and then you'll see what that's all about. Then you will agree with me. So for all of us that life has already kicked us in the ass, what about what we think? What if we still don't agree with you? Because that's really not how it works. Every single person thinks and feels differently. The vast majority of people, especially here in this community on YouTube, of which you're speaking to, are offended by that word and to the point where it deeply bothers us, especially because this was supposed to be in regards to Summer and Candus and Don addressing what Kathy said, which all has to do with Summer, which is why 99% of us are here. And Don still says it loud and proud and in your face, and it doesn't bother him that most people that are listening are practically begging him to stop talking like that. And he just does it even more just to prove a point about how little he cares about the feelings of anybody listening. That's pretty grimy in my opinion. Don says, I am not taking it back. Jinky says that word is just a hard word to hear and the way he's using it. And Don says, well, get used to it. Why does everyone else have to accommodate how you feel, Don, and be okay with you saying a word that you don't have any reason to need to say when it could be replaced so easily with so many other words, yet you choose to say that word specifically? And everyone is supposed to make you feel comfortable because they're supposed to think like you, when the majority of the people actually think it's offensive, but you can't cater to anyone else, what anyone else wants, and what anyone else, you can't respect anyone else's wishes because we all have to change just for Don. He can't change for us. That's narcissistic as hell. Jinky says it's a dirty word, and Don says it's not a dirty word. Well, yeah, actually it is. Don was just saying it earlier that that word is dirty. What else could he possibly call the person that took Summer besides that? But now he's going to say it's not a dirty word. But now he says it's not, right? Don says they're asking it wrong. They're taking it wrong, and it offends them. Well, why is it offending them? Don says. Probably because the literal definition of the N-word, what the N-word actually symbolizes. Don said when he was in school, the N-word meant a thief and a no-good son of a bitch. Don says there's all kinds of those sons of bitches out there. White, black, yellow, green, it don't matter. It's not about color. Well, then call them that. Call them no-good SOBs, or call them thieves. Call them what they are. Don't call them N-words. You can think of something else. Don't play stupid. Don says, I don't mean to say it. I apologize. Yes, you do, or you wouldn't be saying it so much. He says he won't say it anymore. Janky says she wants him to voice his opinion and say what he wants to say. She just doesn't want to hear that word. Don says that man that came up there and took my daughter, what am I supposed to call them? He is yelling directly at everyone on panel. He says, I call them an effing N-word. After just saying that he wasn't going to say that anymore, he couldn't even go 10 seconds. Don says the mother effer that comes up and kills somebody and shoots you in the head and kills one of your family members, what are you supposed to call the mother effer? Excuse me, but what the hell is Don talking about? What family member killed where? Who shot who in the head? What? That's disturbing to say when we're discussing the disappearance of Summer directly, like right now, and you say that? Those are the things that make us wonder about you, Don. How can you even stomach to say things like that? Janky says she would call them dead, and Sherry agrees with her. I actually agree with that too. That's really the best word you can think of. Daisy tells Don she understands he is upset, and Don says, you're effing right, these mother effing N-words took my daughter. He says they probably, trigger warning, effing R'd her, and they probably effing killed her. Talking about his own daughter, Summer. Look, I get the anger and the rage if Don truly doesn't want, like, if he truly doesn't know where Summer is, and if he does, he's still going to probably have a lot of anger and rage going on, but it's not fair to take it out on all the people that are trying to offer you a hand and be there for you. Then on top of that, Don's saying that Summer was probably raped and killed. What would make him say that? Does he have his mind on someone that he knows is a sex offender that he thinks may have taken Summer, because he makes those references a lot? Or does he assume it was someone like that because he knows how many bad people there were in the area? Or is he saying it to cover up something that potentially he knows already happened to her? I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of how Don could say something like this so frequently, something so graphic about his missing 5-year-old daughter, now 7, missing since June 15th, 2021, 2 years ago. And Don has said so many times since then that he thinks Summer is locked in a dungeon being sexually assaulted and other horrific things. How can you let your mind go there and actually have the nerve to say it out loud while being recorded live on YouTube, where you know people are going to tear you apart for that, but you don't care? But then you come here and you say you care and you're sick of all the hate, but you're doing foolish stuff like this on YouTube and you're bringing it all on yourself. So just stop coming here for the wrong reasons. Do it for Summer and stay respectful, and it will work out so much better for everybody, including Summer. He says, what am I supposed to call this mother effer? And all the effing N-words on YouTube. Well, you don't have to call them anything. Don't waste your time. You could be spending that time telling us a story about Summer, or looking at her new flyer, or maybe hanging some yourself. Don goes on. All the mother effing N-words at Hawkins County. What am I supposed to call these mother effers? Don says, F them all, big and small. I'm done. Then he rants on for a bit longer, but Jenkins took the live down and privated it, and then she ended up editing some things out and re-uploaded the edited version. So that's all there is up now. So, I'm so curious what you guys are going to be saying in this chat today. Because I'm going to keep going with this, and I have a lot more to talk about. I just don't have enough time to talk about it all at once, and that's why I pre-record this, because then if the baby wakes up and I have to run abruptly, I can. And also, there's just so much to say that I can't possibly fit it all in one live and make it all like digestible. You know what I mean? So I try to keep them all at about an hour. And if I go live, then I have to go over all these notes that I just took and still go over the chat. And usually by then my son will be up and I'll have to go get him. And well, and that's fine. It's just I don't like leaving you guys hanging like that. So I know it's a lot to take in. And it was a huge distraction from Summer's case. And it was her own father that came on and did it, right? So what does that tell you about him? I mean, honestly. Well, I just realized I wasn't sharing the correct screen, I don't think, that whole time, so you probably did not hear the outro song, but that's okay because there's still a minute left and I can still go ahead and do this. Thank you for being here for Summer Moon Utah Wells. She is still missing, and anyone with any information regarding her whereabouts is urged to call 1-800-TBI-FIND.